Welcome to Session 5. We move to the second branch, the executive branch, led by the President of the United States. We will look at the powers of the office, and just as importantly, the limits on it. By the end, you will know the requirements and term limits for the presidency, be able to list the president's main powers, and understand both the Electoral College and the checks that keep the office in line. Article 2 vests all executive power in a single person, the president. The framers chose one leader, not a committee, so accountability would be clear, especially in an emergency. To hold the office, you must be at least 35 years old, a natural-born citizen, and a resident of the United States for at least 14 years. Each term is 4 years. And since the 22nd Amendment in 1951, a president is limited to 2 terms. That rule was passed after Franklin Roosevelt won 4 elections in a row. The Constitution gives the president several powers. The GED tests often. As commander-in-chief, the president leads the military, though only Congress can formally declare war. The president can veto bills that Congress passes. The president negotiates treaties, but the Senate must ratify them by 2/3. The president appoints judges and top officials, but the Senate must confirm them. Notice the pattern. The president nominates, the Senate confirms. The president can also grant pardons for federal crimes and issue executive orders, directives to the executive branch that carry the force of law without a vote in Congress. Helping the president run the executive branch is the cabinet, the president's top advisors. They are the heads of the 15 executive departments, and we call each one a secretary. For example, the Secretary of State handles foreign policy. The Secretary of Defense runs the military, and the Secretary of the Treasury manages the nation's finances. Like other top appointments, cabinet members are chosen by the president and confirmed by the Senate. One fun fact for the test: the cabinet isn't named in the Constitution at all. It grew by tradition, starting with George Washington. Now, one of the most tested topics, the Electoral College. Here is the twist most people miss. Americans do not directly elect the president. They vote for electors, who then cast the actual votes. Each state's number of electoral votes equals its House seats plus its 2 Senate seats. Add every state together, plus 3 for Washington, D.C., and you get a total of 538 electoral votes. To win the presidency, a candidate needs a majority, at least 270. And in most states, it is winner take all. Win the popular vote in that state, and you get all of its electoral votes. What if the president can't serve? There is a clear line of succession. First is the vice president, then the Speaker of the House, then the President pro tempore of the Senate. After that comes the Secretary of State, and then the rest of the cabinet in the order their departments were created. The 25th Amendment from 1967 set the formal rules for presidential disability and for filling a vacant vice presidency. The president is powerful, but never unlimited. This is checks and balances in action. Congress can override a veto with 2/3 of both chambers. Congress can also refuse to confirm appointments, reject treaties, cut off funding, and even impeach and remove the president. The courts can strike down executive orders that violate the Constitution. And the War Powers Resolution of 1973 requires the president to notify Congress quickly after deploying troops, and limits those deployments without congressional approval. No single branch holds all the power. Let's test it with a quick calculation. A state has 10 House seats and the standard 2 Senate seats. How many electoral votes does it have? The answer is A, 12. Electoral votes equal a state's total congressional representation. 10 House seats plus 2 Senate seats makes 12. 10 plus 2 is 12. And notice the floor. Because every state has at least 1 House seat and 2 senators, no state ever has fewer than 3 electoral votes. Let's recap Session 5. Article 2 creates a single president, who must be 35, natural-born, and a 14-year resident. And the 22nd Amendment caps them at 2 terms. The president's powers include commander-in-chief, the veto, treaties, pardons, and executive orders. But the president nominates, while the Senate confirms. And in the Electoral College, There are 538 votes, and you need 270 to win.